So I'm really not this dynamic person, but I would just like to start by asking you to look around and specifically look at 5 people around you. Look at the faces of 5 people around you. Okay. What I'm about to say is not as joyful as the mood in this room, but according to the Council of Europe, one of them was a victim of sexual violence during childhood. In 2024, almost 90,000 procedures where children were being followed up for being endangered were the reality here in Portugal. And this number keeps rising every year. Unfortunately, these are not just numbers or cold statistics. This is the harsh truth, the real life and pain of thousands of children here in Portugal and millions of children all around the world. So the question we must ask ourselves is, who is to protect these children? Of course, we would think about the parents. The parents are the first ones to get this responsibility to protect their own children. But it can happen that parents might be unwilling or incapable to protect their children, or even, sometimes, they might be the source of the danger for these children. When that happens, that's when the child protection system comes in. But contrary to what many believe, the first response doesn't come from courts or the state. The first response comes from the community. Schools, hospitals, sports clubs, parishes, and local associations, for example, all of them work together, all of us work together to protect the child locally through our coordinated efforts. Only if these first entities fail to respond do the child protection commissions intervene. And only if these commissions are unable to protect the child, or if this intervention is rejected by parents, do the courts intervene. So we really should focus on what every single one of us can do, because the solution in our system is always as close to the child as possible. When we reach a critical phase where the child can no longer be protected within the community, within his or her family, we reach a critical phase. That's what we call, and the child goes inside what we call foster care. Foster care has two main options. The child can either go to a foster family or to residential care, which means living in an institution. By law, the Portuguese law, and by international standards, foster families should always come first, because they allow the child to keep growing inside the family, even if the biological one isn't able to assure that. However, here in Portugal, in practice, the opposite. 96% of children who are removed from their families are placed in institutions. This means that for most children, this is the answer. There are very good institutions, of course, but they're not families. This leaves us with only 4% of children who get to go to foster families here in Portugal. According to UNICEF, and the last report that UNICEF made about this topic, Portugal is last in what comes to our foster families rates in Europe and Central Asia. Of every country studied, Portugal had the lowest rate of foster families. This tells us that when the family, the biological family, is not able to protect the child, our community is still not stepping up to care. But it gets worse, a little bit worse, and then a little bit of hope in the end. There's yet another layer of harm that is something that these children have to deal with, which is stigma, prejudice, and a lot of pre-assumptions that we have towards these children. These ideas, these myths, hurt these children in two ways. Of course, directly, because there are lies being spread that can cause damage to them, but it also misleads our community, preventing us to be the response these children need us to be. So let's break down a few of these myths. So instead of judgment, we can give them protection, and instead of distance, we can give them empathy. First myth. These kids are orphans. These kids are not orphans for the vast majority. They have families. They just don't have families that can take care of them. Often, that's just for a moment. They are going to go back to their families eventually. So, and that's the same pre-assumption here that goes towards the second myth. They're going to be adopted. Most of these children are not adopted. Adoption is quite the exception. Only in Portugal, around 7% of children who go to these institutions in foster care are adopted. Most children go back to their families. If we don't understand these two things, we are not going to be the community these children need, because we're not going to support what these children need. They don't need adoption families, most of them. Some do, but most don't need adoption families. They just need to strengthen someone, institutions, entities, communities that strengthen their families, that empower their families, empower themselves, of course. And the two last myths go directly to the heart of this question, which is the children themselves. The third myth is it's their fault. Children get this a lot from their community. They hear it in schools, they hear it from teachers, they hear it from their friends' parents. What have you done to go to this institution? Children who need to be protected, of course, are not to blame for that need of protection. Parents should be responsible for children. And the last myth, it's that they're dangerous. We all have these ideas of big orphanages where children get adopted because it's their fault they're there, and they're very dangerous and bad children. But these children can have behaviors that can hurt us or others, but they come from pain, they come from wounds that they have. To tell us these stories than the kids themselves. I don't have time to talk about everything I would like and to give voice to every child I would like to give voice. But there's these few quotes. This 15-year-old boy says, "My dream is to go back home. At first, it's always hard. But then I got used to it because I made friends here too." Then we have this 17-year-old telling us that this isn't a bed of roses, but it's not a bed of nightmares either. I don't want people to feel sorry for us. It's not our fault we're here. And finally, this 13-year-old girl telling us, I felt horrible when I got here, because I was always taught that family is the most important thing in life besides yourself. I think these words can impact us a lot, but if you can meet these children, it would impact you so much more. By this time, in this event, I hope this doesn't come as a surprise, but really the answer is community. Our system is based, our protection system is based on a community. But not just any community, a community that is informed, a community that is involved and accountable. This protection of children system is not something for social workers and judges. It's something for every single one of us, for every neighbor, for every friend, every teacher, every volunteer. So what I would like to give you today would be 5 suggestions on how all of us can make a difference in these children's lives through a community that can help them thrive. First, be informed and stop spreading stigma. All of these ideas, stop spreading them, be informed, read reports, and hold others accountable to do so too. Second, to know that danger is present and it could be right next to us. There could be a child suffering literally next to us. Third, know how to act, how to report, how to seek help for these children. Fourth, volunteering, giving part of your time to these children through the work of local associations, community associations. And fifth, I think this would be the most important for the moment being here in Portugal and many other countries too, but specifically here in Portugal, being a foster family. Allowing yourself to open your family to these children. Let's not fool ourselves. This last thing I've said and every other aspects of opening your life to these children isn't easy. Because these children are not newborns ready to come in your lives and to grow up inside a family. These children bring their history, they bring their experiences, their traumas, their sufferings, all of their lives. So it's up to us to adjust and to help them grow. I would like to share with you 2 stories from a project called Amigos para a Vida, Friends for Life. It's a project where we try to find families and single volunteers that want to build meaningful relationships and safe relationships with children in foster care. These 2 stories are stories that can be a bit hard, but that show the truth of the lives of these children. There was this first boy. He knew he had a family accompanying him for several years. And after several years of good relationship, the possibility arose for him to go and move with that family. We would hope that this was a joyful moment, a very happy moment, but the child panicked. And he panicked not because he didn't like the family, but because he liked them too much. Because he felt that by moving in with them, he could ruin everything that they had built together. That's how insecure this child was. That's how broken this child was. In another family, another child with another family, there was this situation where after a couple of years of this relationship going on, the child decided to reject this family. She stopped going to visits, and she stopped meeting with this family over what we call a conflict of loyalty. This means that the child liked them very much, loved this family, but she felt like they were starting to replace the biological family. And the truth is, it is very rare for a child to be able and to be willing to leave behind their parents, no matter how neglectful, how even inadequate or violent they may be. The way that these kids who have been through so much form attachment isn't an easy way to understand because it is complex and counterintuitive sometimes. It's up to us to be there for them, and even though there are no magic formulas, love and affection are always good ways to start a relationship that can thrive. Policies, institutions, laws, they matter because they set the standards. But protection doesn't come from a system only. Protection and this thing we want to get to them is far more. We want to get them emotional bounds that can be sure and assure them. We want to get them relationships that are safe, and we want to get them a family. It's not enough to know that these children are in danger. We also need to be part of the solution. As people, as a society, and specifically and especially as a community. So I'll leave you just with this final question. Are we ready to be the community these children need? Thank you.